Welcome back to Beardworks Podcast, episode 37. Killer episode this week. Resi heavy. Scads, we've both finished Village.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, I guess. We are we're diving right hard and fast into Resident Evil. Obviously lots of stuff coming out over the next 12 months, Resident Evil in general. So let's kick it off with Village, which we've already touched on with our first impressions. And yeah, number 8 was a great entry to the franchise, I think.
I loved the last one, 7. But I
Yep.
think 8 was better. It went crazy with all the monsters and the shit. It was just hectic from start to finish.
Yeah, no, it's such a it was so unexpected. We watched the trailers and stuff like that, and you're like, wow, they're going like heavily into like this kind of gothic vibe with vampires, lichens, and other small things. And I was like, wow, where's this direction going? Because it's a bit confusing. But then you find out there's a lot behind it, and we're obviously going to be talking about complete spoilers. This is going to be from the game from top to bottom. So yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised, I guess, when we got to this, because when you think of Resident Evil, I instantly think of zombies. I think most people do.
Yeah, the movies have definitely ground that into us because we've been watching Resi since we were kids.
Yeah,
And I remember watching the first one, shit myself as a kid. But like, ever since the first trailer for Village come out, we both sent memes the first time we sent it, Van Helsing memes,
Yeah.
straight away. And we hit the nail on the head. It's a Van Helsing Resident Evil game.
yeah. It's gotten massive raps. Like, there's a lot of people that really enjoyed this game. There's a few bits and pieces that people thought they could have done better on, because I feel like if you compare the two, Resident Evil 7 and 8, 7 is a bit more survival horror, whereas 8 is similar with many other things put into it, but there's so much more action, I think.
Yeah, but it feels like 7 was just the prologue to 8, because the shit that they reveal in the end of 8, it blew my mind, man. 7's a completely different experience once you know what's actually going on.
And I spoke about this for the first time when we talked about this game with the first impressions, is that I never, I didn't really get into 7 that much. Like, I played bits and pieces, but it just wasn't my type. Now, I've re-downloaded that and I'm ready to go again and give it a proper crack because...
Yeah, definitely.
Because, I mean, this obviously, I know it's not so action-centric, but Ethan's a different character in 7 compared to number 8. So, it's the same guy, but we know that he's a bit more action-orientated, I feel. He's just like on a war path, pretty much.
He's been dead a lot longer in 8, that you find out.
That's a classic stitch up.
I was not expecting it. People that don't know, 7, you're like, oh, girlfriend's gone missing, crazy house in Arizona or Alabama, wherever it is, Louisiana. I'm going to go save her. You actually die in that game and you don't know. You don't find out until 8 that you were dead the entire game.
Because like Jack killed you, obviously, at the start.
So somehow. When Mia got taken, you got killed.
Yeah, and then
that's before the intro cutscene and all.
And you got infected with the fungus or whatever it's called, the megamycete or whatever.
Yeah, that's it.
But like, so yeah, obviously you find out that the 7 is just a bit of a prelude to what happens in 8. 8's where it's like welcome to hell, pretty much. You know, there's so much going on, and like there is really cool things. So you find out that there's this this all powerful being that pretty much has started this whole thing. And she's been around a lot longer, and that's why people that see the trailer see Mia get absolutely capped by Chris and is it Alpha Team or Alpha Squad, something like that?
Yeah, Alpha Squad.
She gets capped, and you're like, okay, what just happened? And then you find out that further on, like, she was actually is it Mother Teresa?
Mother Miranda.
Mother Miranda. I think Mother Teresa. That's classic. I'm thinking that for
a bit different.
Yeah, a little bit different. Mother Miranda, and then you actually find out that she had been experimenting on pretty much the 4 main bosses of the game.
Yeah, she turned them into the 4 lords, and that's the meat of the game. The village is more of a hub that separates the 4 boss fights.
Yeah,
and yeah.
I mean, well, obviously what we see most of is Lady. I forget how you say the
Lady
last
D. We'll just call her Lady D.
Lady D. And obviously her castle. Now that's the real vampire side of the things. And you talk about how she created her daughters, which are the ones that, like, with the bugs, they decayed over days, and then they eventually reformed into because the shape of a human, and they became immortal, pretty much. But the same thing applies, is that when sunlight hits them, they become weak, and they're weakened and they die. So
And the bugs also can't handle the cold, so that's when you do those fights and you break the windows and shit, and the cold gets in.
yeah, so that's very very similar to what vampires are like with daylight stuff like that. In saying that, Lady D can actually walk out and be in that kind of stuff. She's a whole different kind of kettle of fish when you battle her. Which that whole castle thing is very similar to what I found was with Resident Evil 7 when Jack's chasing you through the house.
Yep.
Where that was pretty much very similar to what 7 was. That's what I've played of 7 anyway. And then you got the boss battle, which is like fighting a dragon out of a book.
Yeah, it's like ever since Resident Evil 2, like the first one that had something chasing you, every Resi's had a Mr. X
Yeah,
since then. And Lady D's just this game's Mr. X.
and yeah, so it's really interesting because you battle her 3 daughters, you defeat them, and then you go on to fight her. But the one thing we spoke about, and obviously at the time we didn't know what was with Ethan, but literally gets his other hand cut off this time,
Yeah.
and just reattaches it with a
Like
bit
you
of
see all this bullshit happening with Ethan healing, putting his hand back on, you're like, oh, this green herb just Resi law. Okay, it's fixing it, green juice, whatever. But you actually find out it's because he's like a metamucite mold monster.
yeah, like he's still got he's actually rotted on the inside, but we just don't see it. And so like when he reattaches it, because that's one of the coolest scenes. Like she pushes you through the floor, and you're like, oh crap, and then she comes in to attack you. Oh, she doesn't come down yet. You just like go to pull the lever, and then you just see this thing go, whooshing, and you're like, what was that? All of a sudden, like Ethan's hand just drops off, and it's still hanging onto the handle, and you're
It's
like,
like that
oh
scene in Underworld where Celine cuts like Victor in half, and he
yeah.
like his head slides.
I was just like, oh nice, because the other hand's already banged up from getting chewed on by a lichen. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, but obviously, let's twist it back a little bit now. Obviously, you get captured early on when you're trying to break into the castle, and that's when you meet the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, pretty much. So you meet
Yep.
Lady D. I forget I forget that one.
It's like Monroe or something.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, that's just a screwed up, mutated kind of thing. And then you've got the doll. I forget her name too.
Lady Bellavino or something like that.
Yeah, and then you've got Heisenberg, which
Yep.
he's the coolest, I think, of the 4. His voice
Yeah,
acting is amazing.
it's either Lady D or Heisenberg for me. Like, his voice is killer in that game. He's just like a lad.
Yeah, and that's a cool scene when like they're giving you they go and they start counting down, and you have to leg it, and then you're like running down, and you got the lichens jumping everywhere, and you fall down into the pits, and they think they've killed you off, and you're like, that's when you go off and escape. But just the game's just a roller coaster from the get go. Like it's just, and the good
There's
thing
no
is
downtime.
there's no downtime, and like as Ethan's character, like obviously in the first game he's sort of facing his fears to fight this thing. But in this one, he's really like, I'm going to save my daughter. And that's the whole story behind this one. They've taken your daughter. They've apparently killed your wife. And yeah, they've taken your daughter. So you're going to save Rose, sorry. And then you find out that she's already been cut up into pieces and stored away.
Yeah,
It's
in
just
these
screwed up.
they put her in these glass flasks, and you got to like get
Defeat.
the Rose puzzle, and that's kind of how the game. That's kind of the meat of the game is the bosses, and each boss gives you a piece of this flask.
So
And
obviously,
that takes you
yeah.
to Miranda.
So obviously you defeat each one of the bosses, and then you find out more and more throughout the story. Obviously, as it progresses, you find out more and more of the backstory of the 4 houses, or all that kind of stuff like that. And you've still got the umbrella symbol like everywhere.
But then you find out that that's actually an ancient
Yeah.
symbol from Mother Miranda, that Spencer, the creator of Umbrella, was influenced by Mother Miranda before Resi happened. He got influence from this Mother Miranda symbol, and that's what he made his own company based. Like that's what Umbrella's based on.
Because you find
It's
that
just like, yeah.
you find that at the end, obviously, when we get to the Chris part. But so obviously, you go through the story defeating these bosses. So Lady D is the first one to go. She turns into this giant dragon kind of thing, like screwed up, and you defeat her. And then you go on to fight the doll.
All the bosses are very generic Resi bosses, like D, Monroe, and Heisenberg. They're all big creature fights at the end. House Bellavino, the second one, it's where this
PT.
game. It's like PT. It's like Resi 7. It's the horror. That's the horror section of the game.
The scariest part about that whole thing with the changing of the dolls and like just trying to find her and stuff like that. The scariest part for me was that baby crawling
there's
in the
big munted mutant fetus thing that just cries and chases you. It comes out of nowhere because you're just creeping around the hallways with a torch, and then you got to a doorway and you just hear the crying. It's just coming, and it doesn't stop.
Oh, it's terrifying! Like, and then you have to hide, and you like literally hide in like the cupboards or underneath the bed, and it just comes right up to it, and you're like, "Oh crap!" And you leg it, and then obviously it's Yeah, it's very full on that little part. But obviously, once you defeat her, you're pretty much it's pretty smooth sailing from there. You go to fight Monroe out in the water, and that's when you see Chris again. So this whole time, you have been so at the beginning you're captured by Chris and you're taken with Rose, and then you wake up, you've been attacked. That's when you start at the village. So we haven't seen Chris since then. All of a sudden, Chris rocks up with Alpha Squad, and then you guys get attacked. All get attacked by Monroe. So then you split up again, and you're like, because Chris is like, stay out of our business, and you're like, what's going on here? Like, you've brought me into this. You know what I mean? And then you fight Monroe, which is I didn't mind that boss battle. It was kind of cool because like multiple parts.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of Resi 4, the Monroe fight, and Resi 5, actually, with all the crocs.
Yeah,
Working through the swamps and that. Like, every section in this game, the boss fights, they're all completely different. If you took them out of context, it'd be like a different game.
yeah,
Because they're just all so varied. It's wicked.
but it's a callback to like so many other different Resident Evils, and like that's the same. Like I like the Lycan enemies pretty cool. Like I think I just like the Lycan enemies pretty good. Like pretty good. That's not right English. The most I should say. Jeez, that's bad. But anyways, so obviously after that fight, you get back and you got this cool vendor, who's you see him around all the time, and you get to upgrade guns. So at this stage, you've found some cool new guns. You've got unlocked more keys, and you've unlocked more things. So you're building your arsenal a fair bit by now. And once you get the grenade launcher, it's pretty sick.
Yeah, the grenade launcher and the Wolfsbane or whatever that revolver is, man. Once you
Yeah.
got that, you're just running through the monsters. Running through them.
And so pretty much the last bit now, after you defeat Monroe, you get this the television telling you, and it's Heinsberg saying, "Come to the factory. I want to talk." Because you're like, okay, let's talk about this. And the thing is, like, when I knew you were up to this part when you were up to this little part, sorry, when we were discussing the last episode, and you're like, you seemed like it was like the end game, and you rushed it, you got it done pretty quick. So I was like, oh, okay, so it must be the Heisenberg battle or that little part of his area must be like fairly quick. That wasn't the case. I mean, it was quick, but like I thought it was just going to be like a quick factory part and that's done and dusted. Like to get there and then go into his underground, whatever that was so sick. Like it's like steampunk.
Yeah, it's Heisenberg's factory. For people that haven't played it, it's like Meatworks, but like you send corpses in there and he just starts plugging random machinery into them, man. They come back as these propeller monsters, chainsaw arm
Oh,
people.
that's some of the scariest monsters. Like as in just like they're so screwed up. It reminds me of there's a game on PC. I think it's on PlayStation now too. Oh, Killing Floor. Some of the
Yep.
Killing Floor monsters. It was just so screwed up, and that was one of the coolest things because you actually sit down and talk to Heisenberg, and he wants to defeat Mother Miranda. Like he's like, I want to take her down for what she's done to me. Heisenberg by far has the coolest ability. He's like Magneto.
Yeah, he's got this big like hammer mace thing he's made out of like scrap metal. It's got cogs and shit on it, and he just like can pull it to him like Mjolnir. He's pretty cool. But I was hoping because at the start he's counting down and the Lycans are listening to him. I was hoping he was like an alpha Lycan,
Yeah.
kind of like the first one, but he's still pretty dope anyway.
Well, that's the thing because like the Lycans don't really have. He is their leader, but he isn't one. He's not a Lycan either. So it's a bit strange that their enemies are there. But I think they're just going for the whole Gothic vibe. And obviously they did a lot of tests on a lot of people, and that's what they transformed them into. But obviously Heisenberg tries to get you on his side, and you're like, and you hear something like revving up below the ground, and he's yelling at it, saying "Shut the f up," all that kind of stuff. And you're just like, and then he hangs you over, and you're like, he just goes, "Oh, join me. It's your last chance." And then Ethan's like, "Screw you," and just like pushes you down. And he goes, "All right, he's going to be fun to play with." And you're like, "Why did you have to say that? Like, why?"
Because
Why?
yeah, you just hear like a jet engine revving up, like as he's talking to you, and then that's the mini boss for like the factory area. But I thought that boss was very easy.
Yeah,
The
when
propeller monster.
I faced him the first time and I died once, and I think it's just because I had low health, and then I just tried to dodge the flames and I ran myself through them. So, but
Yeah. I did it first shot, and I only got hit a couple times. Like
yeah,
I don't
he's
know. I've
easy.
played a lot of Resi games, but it was pretty easy.
He was definitely an easy boss, but there was a lot of other things inside that area that were interesting to battle, I guess. But yeah,
The
so
only,
yeah,
yeah,
continue. I was just going to say like that whole area I just really enjoyed because it was more like dark, not so much horror, but like screwed up mutations, like with mechanical stuff, like very steampunk, and it was just a cool area. Like especially some of the scenes where you overlook the whole factory, like from the distance. It's just like red lights and steam and machinery moving. It was so cool.
it was like Dr. Frankenstein in comparison to Lady D being Dracula. Like
Yeah,
it was very similar to that. But the only boss I had trouble with was House Bellavino, the one you don't actually fight. You just got to find. It took me like 3 shots. I just kept dying. I couldn't find her.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah.
No, I think overall, I think I died once against her because I couldn't find her. But that was about it. And then I died once to him because I sort of stuck myself in a weird spot. I died to obviously the final boss a couple of times.
Yeah, I did as well.
But then obviously you have all this stuff happen, and then you're about to escape, and Heisenberg rocks up and just like gives you one last chance, and you say no. He just busts you through the floor, and you just fall all this way, and you're like, you're just surviving, and then bang, Chris rocks up, and you're like, oh hey, what's up, man? And you just think he's just putting together this freaking monstrous bloody, I don't know, it's something out of bloody Robot Wars, you know?
That frustrated me so much. I just spent like the last 2 hours fighting, climbing my way through this meatworks factory Frankenstein shit, and then you just get kicked down like 20 stories.
Yeah.
Straight back to the bottom.
And you're like, oh, here we go again. But yeah, so obviously Chris rocks up and he's just like, he gives you a bit more of a backstory on what's going on. And you're like, okay, so Chris is on our side. He's here for the right reasons. Because I sort of feel like the first time you saw him again, so the second time you saw him when you're versing Monroe, about to verse Monroe, sorry, it's like they're hiding something from you and that they're part of this and they just don't want you there. But like, he's just like, no, we'll get Rose back, and take this, go kill Heisenberg. And then it feels a bit out of place, that battle. Like it's like fighting a mech, but it made sense, I guess. I just like it because all of a sudden you're given this tank pretty much to go like annihilate him.
Yeah, and so after you kill Heisenberg in the mech fight, Mother Miranda shows up. It's a cutscene. You think you're about to fight her, but she just kills you, quotation marks in the air, kills you. And then you play as Chris for like an hour, and that's one of the sickest sections of the game. You got all his guns and max upgrades. You got like 500 rounds.
Alpha team.
Yeah, full like Apocalypse Squad shows up, Rain of Fire Squad, and you just cut through the village again. And this is where you get the juiciest lore. This is where you find out about the Umbrella origin, the Spencer shit, all the experiments. You find Mia's alive.
That whole scene where like it starts off like Chris is sitting in his like Humvee or something like that. It's like it must be like a few hours later. It's like, all right, guys, we're going back in. And it's just like shit's going down. Lycans are running everywhere. Everything's out of control. And then obviously, I forget the enemy, not the enemy, but like there's a government corporation or corporation rocking up.
It's the other one in Resi. It's not Umbrella. It's the whatever it is.
So they're rocking up, and they're like, "Oh, these guys are going to get themselves into trouble," and they get one of the helicopters gets taken out. But anyways, you're rocking up with Chris armed to the teeth, and you're just like picking them all the Lycans off. Like it's like 2 or 3 shot kills. It's so good. And that's just bossing it around, and eventually you find Mia, like you said, and then you find out all this information of how each one of the 4 bosses were created, or the four families, or what do you want to call it, were created by Mother Miranda. All the back information of what happened in the past, and then obviously how she's connected to the original Umbrella kind of storyline.
Like this is like literally an origin for the Resident Evil franchise. The end of this game, all those notes you can read. Like Chris wasn't phased at all fighting all these munted creatures, facing Miranda. He's fought a million creatures. He was freaking out when he read that.
Yeah, like this is where it began. It's like, okay, no worries. And then you find that Mia's still alive, and then because you find out that obviously Mother Miranda can take on any shape or form, and so that's why she was actually posing as Mia at the start of the game. And so that's why Chris rocks up and just puts that many bullets in her, just he thinks they've not finished her off. And so you find out bits more pieces. Then you find out that Mia says that Ethan isn't, his body's not normal. There's something different about him. And then you cut back to Ethan in pretty much like the nether, pretty much, I think.
Yeah, because he's just had his heart ripped out. When Mother Miranda rocks up on Ethan the first time, she like just fully rips it straight out of his chest and he drops. But like, my boy Ethan ain't dying that easy.
No, he literally like is like in this between world, and I'm not sure who's that in front of him?
That's Evelyn. You didn't finish Resident Evil 7, but that's just like a ghost thing from Resi 7.
Yeah, and so obviously Ethan wakes back up. Oh no, he wakes up in the back of a cart with I forget.
The Duke saved you.
Yeah, the Duke. And so he goes, all right, this is the final stop, and then so you sort of out all your stuff, you buy back and you sell things and kind of get yourself ready for this final battle.
I sold everything and loaded up, man. I was going in there armed to the teeth.
And that's what happens. You get there and you see that they've done the ceremony and Mother Miranda's brought Rose back, but she thinks it's brought back as her daughter. which that didn't really explain much after that. But point is, you go into a boss battle with Mother Miranda, and she's like something out of Silent Hill. It reminds me of just like her
Oh yeah, it's
forms.
definitely like that cult kind of
Yeah.
satany shit.
So
But
yeah,
then, yeah, it's just a resi boss fight. Pump her full of magnum grenades. Like that was the longest fight I've thought in the game. But yeah,
there's sometimes I just ran out of ammo with certain things, and I had to use a sniper a bit, and I just found myself in shit positions. But I got better. I died like twice, I think, and I came back, and I was like, oh, I just need to get her to the next phase, get her to the next phase, and she loses the plot. And even Chris, rocks up and shoots her in the head at the very beginning to try and steal Rose back. But yeah, eventually defeat her, and then Rose, is there still herself. But then you see yourself, your hand starts to fall apart as well, and you're like, oh, nice.
and in generic resi fashion, you kill the final boss, and it just turns into a giant sludge monster. So
Yeah,
then, like Chris, Ethan, and Baby Rose are running away, but Ethan's deteriorating. He's like disintegrating. That
because
fight
the
was
host is
like
pretty much
everything.
dead. That's why.
Yeah,
And obviously, they're going to blow up the Mega Myseed, which early on in the game, you're in a cave after you defeat some pretty cool bosses as Chris, like the big hammer guy. I'm not sure what they're called, but
yeah.
like those fight scenes are kind of cool because you're using like a Hammer of Dawn thing uh,
Oh yeah.
to defeat them with Chris. It's pretty funny because you watch Ethan struggle like just using these shit pistols, even a shotgun. Chris just rocks up and is just like an absolute beast. Like,
But this is like Resi 8 set after. Well, it has to be after Resi 5 because that's they found out the company. It's the BSAA with the bioweapons.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
So this has to be after that because they come in 5. So he's already dealt with Wesker and shit.
yeah,
Mother Miranda, bitch.
yeah, pretty
Another
much,
day at the
yeah.
office.
And that's such a cool thing at the end there. Like as you see them walking away, and you see the Mega Myseed, and he's got the trigger for the explosives, and he's just like, "We're going to blow this whole village sky high. Let's get out of here." And Ethan's like, "I can't. Like I'm literally falling apart as it is." And then you see the outside of him, but you just don't see his face, and you just see him push Rose and Chris on the other side. Then this tree thing just comes across, cuts him off, and you see he's got the explosives. He's just like, "Get her out of here!" Gives her his coat, which he's like,
That was literally Shivers, that scene where he saves the daughter, saves Chris, and he walks back just with a detonator. I'm taking you with me, bitch.
and just blows the Mega Myseed up, which is like the core, the one thing that caused everything. That's
Yep.
where the this fungus started from the Resident Evil 7 and stuff like that. And then what created all these monsters and all these bosses that you fought up to this point. So yeah, like you see that there's a massive explosion. Chris says to Mia, "That's it," all that kind of stuff, and that's pretty much the end of the game. Obviously, we have a bit we'll talk about in a second, but yeah, like overall, from that point on, that it was such a great game from the get go to the end. Like it was just like an adrenaline fueled rush of like not backing down and just fighting each monster as you went and defeating him.
Yeah, because like in Resi 7, he's all right. He's just a bit generic, just like, every man, no face, just, yeah, go through the story. But in this one, it makes you love Ethan. Ethan's a beast.
Yeah, like he's not as good as Chris, but he is like the next best thing.
But how long's Chris been doing this shit?
Yeah, Chris has got so much backstory, whereas we've only had Ethan now, like the first and second game now, and obviously there's going to be a third to this trilogy of Winter's games, which we know it's going to be a little bit different. So we'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, Ethan was just a really cool character, and yeah, he just like I love how he just stared in the face of monsters and he's just like f you this, f you that, I'm gonna get my daughter back. It's like he never backed down.
Yeah, dude. It was like the end scene was like Halo 3 or 2 cutscene, whatever it is, like giving the Covenant back their bomb.
Yeah,
Ethan walks with a tactical nuke trigger in hand. Yeah, right, bitch. Boom. That's it.
pretty much wiped himself out. And then obviously there's a bit of a bits and pieces. Mia talks a bit, and and then it shows the. I love the Village of Shadows, like the finish to that. So it tells the story again from the beginning, like it did at the start of the game. But then it has and then the father fought, and then the mother arrived late, and it shows like the father sitting there fighting with the torch against Mother Miranda, but like in the kind of a child book thing.
Tim Burton, Nightmare Before Christmas shit.
Yeah, that was really cool. And then we get to the final cutscene where it shows, as we presumed, a grown-up Rose going to see Ethan's grave.
Yeah, because she's got his jacket on.
Yeah, and so we know it's her, and so we're like, okay. And then these people from Umbrella or from Chris's team rock up. She goes, "Yep, no, she's here like as usual." And then he says a smart remark, and she shoves him up against the car. Like, okay.
Oh, I've got powers, bitch. Don't mess with me.
Pretty much she's just saying like, Chris, she goes, "I've got powers that Chris hasn't even seen yet." And you're like, okay, so this is really interesting because obviously her whole situation. She obviously was born with this inside of her because of Ethan was, Mia wasn't pregnant, but she was part of that Resident Evil 7 storyline, and then Ethan was obviously dead but brought back to life. So there's like two perfect things matched together to create this.
I think she was conceived, but she was conceived between Mia and Ethan, which are both like megamycete mutants.
So
she's wasn't mutated. That's like
no,
she's like perfectly genetic. She's like Alice, I reckon.
yeah,
That's what I guess.
I think that's what they're building her up to be like, and so we know something. We don't know what kind of powers that she has, but she's obviously very powerful because they want to keep her in the fold. Because like there's something's come up and she has to go deal with it. So like they know that they're using her as a weapon, pretty much, probably like a bio weapon.
Yeah, well.
But then you see, like you said, like so they drive into the distance, and then you see them. They pull over. There's someone walking up to the car, and you don't know what it is. Now, the one thing I didn't like is the cutscene was so not well done. As in, the characters are fine, but like this, the cutscene was just it was in engine. I'm guessing, and it just didn't look nice.
Yeah, nah. It looked fine when she was kneeling down at the grave, but around the car when it drove off, it was jank.
Yeah, I was like, what's going on here? Like, it did remind me of more of like a Resident Evil feel, but I was like, they literally have like animated movies that have better quality than this. Like, why don't use like something like that? Point is that I'm trying to work out now. In that part, it says the father's story has ended, and it sits on there for ages.
I think Ethan's story's done, but it's going to be Rose. It's going to be continuing the Winters story.
But this is what I'm trying to work out. So she's obviously a teenager now. How far into the future are we? Because obviously the movies are different. The movie universe is different to the video game universe. Because the video game universe, the world, like Resident Evil 5 is years after Raccoon City, but the world hasn't gone to shit. So, and obviously this has taken part like 10, like she was only a child. She was only just born when we finished Village.
I think in the games, it's a lot more isolated incidents that get sorted out. It's not like an apocalypse like the movies.
Because I'm just trying to work out now. So she's obviously, 14, 15, 16, probably 17 or 18 right now. I can't tell. You can't even tell these days. So like, how long has passed and what's going on? How old's Chris now? Like, is he like a director of this, all the kind of stuff like that? It's going to be
cool theory I've been reading. She ages quickly, so she might only be like 5 years old.
That's what I was thinking too. I was like, that could be something, and then she gets to an age and stays at that age for like a while. So,
yeah.
But yeah, obviously, it would be really cool to see what happens, and there's obviously going to be more to the story. And yeah, so the father's story's ended. That's what we're finished with. So, do we play as her next? But the thing is, if she's OP, like, then what's it going to be like? It's going to be like a supernatural kind of game where we be able to use abilities to wipe them out, because that's not really.
I hope not. Unless it's like mind reading or like something else. Maybe she can control the zombies, or I don't think she's going to be like punching holes in walls and throwing cars and stuff.
I'm just wondering if, like, okay, this is pure speculation. Obviously, it's a little ways away yet, because they'll probably do a remake of Resident Evil 4, which is what we've already spoke about.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that it might be something similar. So we're going to be playing as a new character. It's going to be the Winter storyline still, but we're going to be chasing after her. She's like on a. I'm not saying this is. I'm trying to piece it together in my head right now, but what I would say is that maybe she's going after something or someone, and like you're trying to catch up to her, and like you're just following in the carnage, and there's still enemies that you got to fight, sort of thing. Or she gets taken by something and you have to go get it back, but then that'd just be the same story as what we just played. So, because it'd be cool if, like, they say Mother Miranda has returned, or there's or Albert Wesker has returned and he's doing this, and like they're like, we need to stop him, and then but we say we can't use Rose. So they're like, so Rose goes, no, I'm the only one that stops, and goes off on her own, and it's sort of like, chase around the world kind of thing.
Or she brings Ethan back.
Oh, he becomes like the bad guy.
Imagine that.
So I don't know, but the thing is, I don't think we'll play as Rose in the next game, and I don't think we'll play as Mia. That doesn't make any sense unless she gets trained up. But to have a female protagonist is not unrealistic.
You do play as Mia for like half an hour in the end of 7.
So I don't think you'll play as Chris. I reckon Chris might get killed in the next one.
Yeah, well, speaking of Chris, we've just picked up Resi 5. We're going back.
Yeah, we're going back. Taking it back. Yeah, nah. So keen to play that. Obviously, back on PS4, or we'll be playing on PS5 on the PS4 version, because there's obviously nothing else at the moment. You recently picked up a pre-owned copy from EB Games. I've bought the digital edition on the store. So, yeah, going back. Can't wait.
Dibs, Chris.
I have to play a Shiva then? I don't know. Does it come with all... Do we have to buy the DLC? I don't know.
I don't know. Mine says it's DLC, but it's pre-owned, so I've got no idea.
Yeah, we have to work it out. Either way, yeah, we're taking it back to Chris's glory days, pretty much, even though he has like these 6 scenes or these 6 moments in both these games now. But yeah, so I guess just Resident Evil 8 Village was
It was
a
killer, man.
bloody great game.
Game of the year so far for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a few more games that come out this year. So, and the thing is, Resident Evil games never exactly take the top tier, award.
Did 7 win Game of the Year? Can't remember.
I honestly don't remember, but all I know is I really enjoyed this. And the thing is, like I said, I didn't like 7 as much because you like the battles and the kind of gunplay was kind of slow. But in saying that, this was relatively the same, but there was just more weapons you could use, and I really enjoyed that, switching it up. And just taking the range of enemies was really good.
Yeah, that's what 7 suffered from. You had the boss fights, which were cool, but every enemy was just a Metamucil sludge.
Yeah.
That was it.
Nah.
Metamucil sludge.
But yeah, Resident Evil 8, and I think there's meant to be a DLC coming. So I'm just
we got the Chris tapes for 7. I don't know what they're going to do for this one.
Well,
might get a Rose thing.
All I know is that Ada Wong was in this, but they cut her from it. So they might add her, but I'm just reading here. It says Resident Evil 8 Village DLC plans and why Ada Wong was cut from the game. So there's still more around. It'll be really interesting to see what happens.
Knowing Ada Wong, she would have been poking around the village trying to steal shit.
Yeah. Overall, this was such a good entry to the Resident Evil series, and I'm glad they're taking it away from. They've got Chris, obviously, who's like a staple character, but obviously Leon is probably the most well liked character, and they're sort of staying away from him at the moment. I reckon they're saving up Leon, for the remake of 4, but I reckon they're saving Leon for something different.
Yeah, I've got no idea, but at least Rezzie's back because it was so stale for a while, man. 5, 6, the Raccoon City game, like all the other shit spin-offs. Like Rezzie's back in form.
Yeah, the 8 was such a great entry and it's such a great game. Like if you haven't played it, go and play it. Obviously, you've heard all the spoilers now, so that you've had your warning prior to this.
Oh, but we only we did the major story beats, but there's so much shit to see.
Yeah, and I think that one of the cool things that's coming out, obviously, we've got Infinite Darkness, which is coming out, which is a Netflix animated thing, and it focuses on Leon and I think Claire Redfield, which is like the staple of those animated movies. Yeah. Then you've got the Resident Evil reboot, which is like no superstars in it acting, so it'll probably be half decent.
And that's based on the first game, so that's Spencer. Back at the Spencer Mansion, all the creepy shit.
So we got a reboot of the universe there, which will probably follow more of the not so much apocalyptic ending with Alice saving the day every day. It was going to be like more focused on human characters versus screwed up monsters. So keen.
Yeah, so Rezzie's killing it. Absolutely killing it right now.
Yeah. Like I said, if you haven't played it, go play it. Definitely worth it. It's such a good game. The horror aspect is not boosted as much, but there's a good blend of horror and action. I think it's a good mix, and I think just the story is actually pretty sick, especially with Ethan at the helm.
Yeah, man. Ethan, he's kicking off, man. He's kicking off.
Anyways, so next episode we'll show talk about. We're probably going to follow in the vein of the Bad Batch. Where they're up to. I haven't watched any more as of the premiere.
I'm 1 episode behind.
Yeah. And then we're also going to kick off with Castlevania's season 4 and the finale. And oh my lord, what a bloody show. Dude.
Far out.
Such a great show, honestly. One of the best video game adaptations ever.
It's because it's not trying to be the video game. It's trying to be its own thing.
Yeah, which we'll break into that when we review it. We won't do it now because this is Resident Evil. So
we'll be here for another 6 hours. Man.
Yeah, exactly. But anyways, thanks for tuning in. Do the usuals of following us on our socials, on Instagram and Twitter. And yeah, thanks for listening.